Good morning. I am Molly Brinkerhoff, today's worship associate. Welcome to this morning, this day, and this opportunity to virtually be together in community. This online service is brought to you by Reverend Jackie, Drew White, and myself from the church's sanctuary. Again, welcome, whether you are a longtime attendee to this church or this is your first time. We have quite a few weekly announcements today, so please bear with me. First, we would like everyone to please sign in on the chat box to the right of your screen. This will let us know who is joining us. Second, for the Change for Change, the 2 May recipients this May, that we all donated to as members and friends and our minister, we received donations for a total of $330 for the Idaho Community Food Basket, and we received donations for a total of $310 for Trinity United Methodist Church for their homeless project. Thank you, everyone, for your donation. That's pretty amazing. We will be having sorrows and concerns and joys, but that will happen after the sermon. At that time, currently we don't have any email joys, sorrows, and concerns, so we'll take whatever comes into the chat box. So be sure if you want to share, put it into the chat box. And please indicate whether it is a sorrow, concern, or a joy. Remember to use the donate button on our UUCIF website during the offertory so we can continue to fulfill our church mission of providing ministry and church community. The information for donating online or by mail is written on our website under the Give button. Be sure to stay for the virtual coffee hour after the service by clicking the link in the email. Another announcement, our church garden really needs some work. The weeds are getting out of control. If you can spare an hour, please come and weed. If you have any questions, please call me. And then finally, I have 2 more announcements on related to church services. On June 28th, our congregation and congregations all over the country have been invited to join the UUA General Assembly Sunday morning worship. The Reverend Joan Javier Deval, minister of the Unitarian Church of Montpelier, Vermont, is leading the service, along with the Reverend Michael Slack, community minister for worship and spiritual care for Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, and Benji Messer, music director at the UU Congregation of Phoenix, who will lead the over 140-member virtual choir. I have been to a number of GA worship services, and they've all been wonderful. So on June 28th, we will not be having an online service, and we encourage everyone to attend this UUA service. A link will be provided in our weekly update and on our website. On another aspect of our services, to give the worship team and the tech team a break, the church will not be providing services for the month of July. This is to get the worship and tech teams re-energized for when Reverend Kevin joins us. The worship team encourages you to attend online services at other congregations. Links to those other churches will be provided in weekly updates. More information will be forthcoming. And online services will resume here on August 2nd. With all that said, welcome to this morning, this day, this opportunity to be together in community online. now move into the sacred time of worship. As I ring the peace bowl 3 times, take deep breaths and relax so we can move into worship. For this moment in time to let go of your anxieties, fears, and worries. Be in this moment. Since we are not all together, I will read our church covenant for us all. You can recite it from home with me if you like. Love is the spirit of this community, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. We will now be lighting our chalice. If you have a chalice or candle available, please light yours with me. Today's chalice lighting is by Eric A. Heller Wagner. Blessed is the fire that burns deep in the soul. It is the flame of the human spirit, touched into being by the mystery of life. It is the fire of reason, the fire of compassion, the fire of community, the fire of justice, the fire of faith. It is the fire of love burning deep in the human heart, the divine glow in every life.
Greetings and welcome to this morning and day. You know, there is no day like today, none in the past, none in the future. So what will this day bring? Reprieve from the realities of the pandemic and waiting and wondering, am I next? Is someone I love next? Who lives and who dies? What will this day bring? Maybe a new bird song that's clear, shrill, and insistent. Maybe rain. What new flower, bush, or tree has cloaked itself in blossoms that you can see? Did you see the sunrise this day? Will you look to see the sliver of the moon rise tonight? Walking, rolling, wheeling, will you breathe in the freshness of a breath filled with the fertile scent of earth unfounding? Maybe a talk with a neighbor, 6 feet apart, of course. Maybe a call with a friend or a relative. Maybe letter writing. Maybe giving oneself over to some creative process. Maybe time in the garden, handful of dirt, seeds, and seedlings, watering them all, and we become good stewards then, good stewards of what might just save us. So morning has come, and it is a harbinger of possibilities for this day. So welcome to this morning, a time so brief, a once-a-week time that lifts us out of what ifs and into the possibilities of a connection, community, caring. Let this be precious time, for once a week we are affirmed as ordinary, extraordinary yet beings, gifted with possibilities to choose from. Morning has come, and it is a harbinger of a day of possibilities. So welcome to this morning and day. And I invite you to join in singing our opening hymn, 1000, Morning Has Come, which is in the PDF that was mailed to you earlier. Jessica, our pianist and vocalist, will play the melody through once, and then I invite you to join in singing with her. Let us begin.
Hello.
There is an account that in the late 19th century, Francis Greenwood Peabody, who was on the faculty of the Harvard Divinity School, went abroad to study at the University Halle in Germany. He was greeted by the then famous German professor Thorlach, who, when he learned that Peabody was a Unitarian and the son of a Unitarian minister, declared, "Ah, you are an American Unitarian. They are the true mystics." Professor Thorlach, no doubt, was referring to the pervasive influence that New England transcendentalism had upon Unitarian thought and leaders in America. Emerson, who had been hailed as the first true American philosopher, advocated a kind of nature mysticism based in part on the writings of the Hindu and Buddhist mystics. His concept of the oversoul is indistinguishable from the Hindu notion of the human soul, or Atman, being one with the divine soul of the universe, or Brahman. He talked about becoming a transparent eyeball to the currents of universal being manifest in nature and in the human mind. The Transcendentalists were among the first Westerners either in Europe or America, to read and translate the sacred writings of the East. Ah, you are an American Unitarian. They are the true mystics. What if someone said that to you today? Would you be comfortable owning the label of a true mystic? Are you perhaps a mystic? Maybe, maybe not. Hopefully my reflection will clarify if you are or are not a mystic, particularly a Unitarian Universalist mystic. Let me lift up that there is such a misunderstanding of mysticism in our culture. Many people think of a mystic, when they think of a mystic, they envision someone who withdraws from this world and becomes immersed in the supernatural. Are Unitarian Universalists people who are wedded to rational approach to religion? Ones who do not accept the rational, unapproved claims of the mystics, because it is your understanding that mysticism is contrary to a rational understanding of the world? Well, let me say that that is not necessarily true, for there are forms of mysticism that are not at all contrary to a rational understanding of the world. You know, there is virtually no religious system that does not include a mystical tradition. The Kabbalah in Judaism, Sufism in Islam, Hindu yoga, Buddhist meditation, Gregorian chant, Quaker silence, shamanic journeying, native vision quest, and UU transcendental philosophy. Indeed, mysticism takes many forms and expressions: nature mysticism, soul mysticism, ethical mysticism, God mysticism, the mysticism of love and service, knowledge and understanding. Most mystics, though, speak a common language through the personal experience and union with the divine, the all, or the holy. Often mystics are treated as heretics, since they, like our own faith community, refuse to abide by creeds and dogmas. Mystics are spiritual gadflies who point their fingers toward the moon, reminding us to look at the moon and not the finger. My favorite description of what I consider a legitimate mystical experience is expressed by the Russian writer Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who said in these words, "Sometimes I feel quite distinctly that what is inside me is not all of me. There's something else sublime, quite indestructible, some tiny fragment of the universal spirit. Don't you feel that?" Now, I hope we all have that kind of feeling of the universal spirit, whether we call ourselves mystics or not. It's a blissful state. I felt it when I sat on top of the mountain in the Rockies all night, watching shooting stars streak across a dark sky. I felt it when I held the hand of a church member as he was passing away. Those were mystical experiences in my life when I was filled with a sense of total presence, awe, and connection. It's not a matter of having a revelatory encounter with another world or eagerly waiting another light. True mysticism is experiencing the depth and reality in this world and this life. This is called naturalistic mysticism, which is the belief that we may directly experience spiritual truths and a unity with the universe without a supernatural being. That sense of depth and heightened reality is the first characteristic of what I consider authentic mysticism. It's experiencing life in its fullness, of being totally present in the here and the now, not living in the past, guessing what we should have done, and not living in the future, anxious about what might happen. I'm not saying that we should never contemplate the past or prepare for the future, but rather that we need another way of being in our life as well, and that it is to be fully present in the moment. Erich Fromm wrote that learning to be is the most radical revolution a person can undergo. I would add that it is also the most mystical experience. Many of us have abundant goals for our future, but what could be a better goal than to simply learn how to be ourselves here and now completely? One of our greatest Unitarian mystics, Henry David Thoreau, reminds us of how to live in the present with these words. He said, "Take time by the forelock, now or never. You must live in the present. Launch yourself on every wave. Find your eternity in each moment. Fools stand on their island opportunities and look towards another land. There is no other land. There is no other life but this." To be awake is one of the greatest goals of the mystic. Gautama Buddha was called the awakened one because he was fully conscious to the divine in the present. He was able to look into the heart of reality itself, embracing the darkness along with the light. Our purpose as human beings is also to be awake to the miracles of life all around us. There's a story about two Zen masters who meet one day. One of the masters wants to outdo the other, so he says that he will perform a miracle that will show his superiority. He will transform an animal into a human being. Before he can perform his miracle, the other Zen master responds with these words, "Perhaps your fox can perform that trick, but that is not the manner of Zen. My miracle is that when I'm hungry, I eat, and when I feel thirsty, I drink." That is what could be called true mysticism, not an otherworldly yearning that negates this life, not false hopes filled with superstition and sensational miracles, but a deep spirituality that senses the miraculous in every moment here. William Blake, the English poet and mystic, wrote that if the doors of perception were cleansed, humanity would see everything as it is, infinite. When we do cleanse those doors of perception, some of us may find God. Others may find the endless depths of light, while others discover the great mystery. This is another characteristic of the mystics, the experience of participating in some indefinable and mysterious power that embraces all of life as one living being. In Taoism, it reads, "The name that cannot be named is the eternal Tao." The Lakota Sioux believe in a power so great and incomprehensible that they call it the Great Mystery. What better way to define the indefinable? The Great Mystery makes explicit that we have no idea what this reality is, but we do experience ourselves as tiny fragments of the universal spirit. In the words of Albert Schweitzer, the highest knowledge is to know that we are surrounded by mystery. A vital perception for the true mystic is not having to go to the mountaintop or desert to sense the mysterious, to be filled with divine revelation, but uncovering the sacred right where they stand, whether it's knee-deep in a creek, eating bread at breakfast table, or of all crazy places, sitting in church on a Sunday morning. Another quality of mysticism is that it is a religion of love. There's a creation story from the Jewish mystical tradition called the Kabbalah that is quite different from the Genesis story. It pictures a creation where there was a God and nothing else. God desired to create something to relate to, but even the all-powerful could not create a world out of nothingness. So the only thing God could use for the stuff of creation was God. So the divine oneness fragmented itself, breaking into millions and millions of tiny pieces that rained down upon the earth. Each of these fragments became a living being, a plant, an animal, a human. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Called evolution. And the purpose of each fragment of God now is, by using our compassion and love, to connect with one another and unite, knowing unconsciously that we each are a union, that God has recreated a little more in us. I believe that the purpose of our lives to sense our connection with one another so that we may recreate the sacred and divine in life. The writer Jean Houston describes this mystical quest as a search for the beloved. She tells us that in all the great spiritual traditions, the central theme, the guiding passion, is a deep yearning for the beloved of the soul. What is the beloved of the soul? Rumi, the Sufi mystical poet of the 13th century, put it into words. He writes, "My soul spills into yours and is blended. Because my soul has absorbed your fragrance, I cherish it. Every drop of blood I spill says to the earth, I blend with my beloved when I participate in love." Now this may sound like a poem to a lover, but Rumi wrote his poems to the beloved, to that which encompasses all life and all love. Rumi believed that this yearning for union with the beloved lies at the heart of the spiritual journey, and it transcends all of the multiple and marvelous varieties of human loving. This yearning for more than we are comes from a great loneliness in us. We begin in unity, but at the moment of birth, this original connection is lost. For the rest of our lives, we sense a sense of separation and a strong striving or yearning for union. A spirit within us drives us relentlessly on, always prodding us to pursue the quest for unity. Though we may believe ourselves to be utterly bewildered, deep within us there is a compass that points steadily to the center of things. Throughout our lives, we long for the beloved. We call it by many names: God, truth, the Tao, Brahman, the ground of all being, love, nature. But the names matter little. What does matter is that we seek, from the day we are born to the day we die, a relationship with something beyond ourselves. We can manage to find some completeness in the blessed thirst-quenching love of another human being. But when we are in the arms of another, we cannot help but yearn to be in the arms of the beloved itself. And when we are in the arms of the divine beloved, we cannot help but reach out to others then in compassion. And this brings me to the last quality of mysticism. The true mystic is a person who realizes that the most important step towards enlightenment is to be a moral individual, to be free of fear, exploitation, greed, and falsehood. The Quaker theologian Rufus Jones an immensely popular spiritual thinking in the middle of the 20th century, and an influence on spiritual activists like Martin Luther King Jr., while believing in healing and the vitality of mystical encounter, divided mystics into two classes. He called them negative mystics and affirmation mystics. The first class taught that what depth psychologist Abraham Maslow would later describe as peak experiences, the ecstatic rapture of the union of the divine, which Jones regarded as spiritual escapism. Rather, he told them, he looked to those he described as affirmative mystics for guidance. Such mystics, he says, were whatever experience or visions they had, in his words, they do not make these the end of their life, that which we aspire to, but the beginning of life. He valued not the vision, but the way in which the mystical experience empowers the participant to serve the world. For Jones, the mystical was to be sought not for its feeling state, but for what he called its motor effects, its social utility, its usefulness in transforming us and in doing transforming ways to make our society whole. Jones, in his sense of affirmative mysticism, that which does not humble us or deprive us of our will and power, but rather inspires and empowers us, was the mentor and the model for the Afro-American preacher and teacher, Howard Thurman, who in turn was the most influential spiritual figure in the life and work of Martin Luther King Jr. For King, it was mysticism that fueled social change, and in particular, the civil rights movement. And not just the individual mountaintop variety, but most especially the mystical experience that, as Rufus Jones put it, flourishes best in groups. For him, this happened in the Quaker-style worship with its rhythm of silence and spontaneous word. For Unitarian Universalists, as people of words, it could be said to happen in our coffee hour. There are many other mystics such as George Fox, William Blake, Mohandas Gandhi, Thomas Berry, so many, Meister Eckhart, who believe that to be mystical is to be fully aware of the spark of divine within each life. And once we are aware of that sanctity, then we have no choice but to do everything possible to make peace and justice in the world. If we really sense that we are a part of the interdependent web of all existence, we don't withdraw from life, we embrace it. A mystical religion inspires a feeling of unity and oneness that motivates us to work for the greater causes of humanity and the beings on this earth. That belief in mysticism does not mean that we will be beamed up to nirvana and become instantly enlightened. It does not solve all of our problems. One master, Zen master, said, now that you have achieved total perfect enlightenment, you may expect to be just as miserable as before. That's all too true, isn't it? When we become true mystic, a true mystic, we accept our relationship not only with the great mystery, with the beloved, but with all life. And we accept our responsibility to join in the struggle for human dignity and planetary peace. So then, these are the qualities of what I believe and others believe to be authentic mysticism. To be awake to the miracles of the moment, to be open to the great mystery of life, to seek the beloved in each other, and to live ethical and justice-seeking lives. You know, Unitarian Universalism is grounded in a mystical sense of connection of each to all and all to each. Our Unitarian Universalist principles and purposes refers to the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part, and in our sources of the living tradition, which most Unitarians don't pay attention to, the very first source that it lifts up is, quote, the direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder that affirms in all culture a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. These are mystical statements. The old German Professor Tholak was right. We are true mystics. It is time for us to reclaim our own transcendentalist mystical heritage. It is both the source of our sense of connection to the whole of being and of our social conscience that recognizes our connection to one another in justice and love, and our responsibility to the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. So, good people, maybe you are a mystic, maybe you're not. Let me know by putting a yes if you are or a no if you are not in the chat box. So ends my reflection.
Our offering words today are by Kayla Parker. We know that our financial contributions to this congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. We are grateful for this and commit together to ensure the funds we gather collectively do a greater good for ourselves and our world than they could have done alone. May there be an offering to sustain and grow the life and mission of this congregation, especially in these hard times of online. May we give in love and in hope. While we listen to Let the Mystery Be by Iris Dement HQ, please remember you can donate in the moment via the Give button or mail in your donation. All this information is on your church website, is on the church website or in the order of service.
Everybody is wondering what and where they all came from. Everybody is worrying about where they're gonna go when the whole thing's done. But no one knows for certain, and so it's all the same to me. Think I'll just let the mystery be. Some say once you're gone forever, and some say you're gonna come back. Some say you rest in the arms of the Savior who fits in the ways you lack. Some say that they're coming back in a garden, bunch of carrots and little sweet peas. I think I'll just let the mystery be. Everybody is wondering what and
We gratefully receive any offering that was given.
Good people, you know it's been a week of righteous outrage and profound lamentation, or expressions of grief. The deep generational trauma of white supremacy in our country made itself known yet again when George Floyd died under a Minneapolis police officer's knee. This was a 21st century lynching. It wasn't an isolated act of white violence either. It's been happening to black and brown people, and especially black men, for centuries in the United States of America. Would you take a breath with me right now and let that grief, or any grief you may be holding around those tragedies, come forth? If you identify as white, that grief must also be a reckoning for, as Roxanne Dunbar Ortez tells us, this violence is at the heart of our country's origin story, a story based on the ideology of white supremacy, the widespread practice of African slavery, and a policy of genocide and land theft. Ibram Kendall tells us we have metastatic racism, and it is literally killing America. Let us not ignore George Floyd's death and the terrible context of his death, murder, and others' deaths, murders that they are embedded in. I have a bowl of water and some salt in it. If you have some too, I invite you to use your hand to stir the salt in the water, and then submerge your fingers into the salty water and taste the salty water as a symbolic way to know the tears of grief that black and brown families shed when unjust trauma and death are perpetrated on a family member and community members in this country. Let us taste the salt of those tears through that water, the salt of their tears, and perhaps our own tears. And good people, let that salty taste be your tears to our UU commitment to help both dismantle this country's white supremacy legacy and work to mend the wounds it has created. May tears, your tears, be the beginning. May we keep going. And I invite you into a time of quietness as I offer this prayer from my colleague, Virginia Safford. Source of life, spirit of life, so much carries on as usual, even now in the pandemic time. Why are we so surprised? Not everything has changed. The greening of the tender land, the spotted fawn, now 12 days old, spily, graceful, and reedy grasses, orioles returning, flash of fire, miracle. The murder by police of a human soul in daylight. Just like that, another black man gone from our sight, gone from the embrace of his family. I can't breathe, he said, as they killed him on the pavement in the greening spirit, sun shining down, raining. I can't breathe, he said, as they stole the breath. He can't breathe, nor hear the birds, nor greet the sun, nor laugh in the rain, nor clasp a hand, give thanks, eat bread, or sing. Source of life, they killed him on the pavement in the greening spring. Not everything has changed, even now in the pandemic time. Spirit of life, may there come, may we make, may we bring, and be a mighty change. Shake us from our solitary sadness into unremitting and concerted rage. Shake us from complicit silence and our usual complacency into people worthy of the trees, the birds, the spring, the rain, and breath. May we who are still breathing be worthy of breath to do the work that's needed ahead. May it be so. May we make it so. Let us sing alone and yet together, Spirit of Life, hymn 123, which was sent out earlier in a PDF, and we'll sing it 3 times through.
This is a very special time in our congregation where each of us has an opportunity to share major events in our lives, our joys, our concerns, and our sorrows so that we can all be uplifted by our UU community. Today, if you have a joy, concern, or sorrow, please list it in the chat box and let us know which it is, a joy, concern, or sorrow. And Reverend Jackie will light a candle as I read them through. I will start with I would like to light a candle of joy for the beautiful flowers that are in my yard. That is my first joy. So hang in there, we're waiting for. And again, while we're waiting for people to write in the chat box, also because of the ways our lives are being touched by loss and grief during this global pandemic, we light a red COVID candle for the deaths of all those people across the United States and the world who have died from coronavirus. And since it doesn't appear that anyone wants to do a joy, concern, or sorrow, we light one more for all of those joys, concerns, and sorrows that we hold in our hearts and are unable to share today. Stay healthy and strong, members and friends. Our UU community lifts up its love for each and every one of you.
The hymn?
No, the closing.
Oh, closing words. Okay. Sorry. A little bit of confusion for the moment. So my closing words before we sing our closing hymn come from Albert Einstein. He wrote, "The most beautiful and profound emotion we can experience is the sensation of the mystical. It is the sour of all true science. He to whom this emotion is a stranger, who can no longer wonder and stand rapt in awe, is as good as dead. To know that what is impenetrable to us really exists, manifesting itself as the highest wisdom and the most radiant beauty, which our dull faculties can comprehend only in their primitive form, this knowledge, this feeling is at the center of true religion." And now I invite you joining, singing in our closing hymn, hymn number 86, which is sent to you in a PDF. Please join in singing it, and we'll play it one time through, and then join in singing.
Fill me with compassion, be my source of intuition. Then when life is done for me, let love be my legacy.
We did have a few more joys, concerns, and sorrows come in, and we do want to address those, so we are going to light a candle for those people currently. Karen Schaefer says, yesterday afternoon, their friend George Gacidio died of cancer. I'm so sorry. Elizabeth Cogliotti says, her joy is I have planted celery, pumpkins, melons that she started herself. The tomatoes will be ready. Layla Chambers updates us on Sue Wild. The renovation of her kitchen and bathroom are almost finished. Soon she will be able to be there permanently. Allison McCready says, the sun is shining, the carrots are sprouting. And Roby says, I'd like to send all our healing thoughts to Judy Stanley. So thank you for sending those in. And so with that, we are going to now extinguish our chalice with the following words. Join me from home if you wish. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And the postlude is a medley of UU hymns. For our virtual coffee hour, we have discovered that there might be a slight problem. So we are going to give it a shot. Please give us 5 minutes to try to get it set up to go and to let you in. If in about 10 minutes nothing is happening, that means it didn't work out the way we thought. So please join us or try to join us for our virtual coffee hour. Have a good day.